Today is Martin Luther King Day. It's also Inauguration Day. President Trump has been inaugurated, the 47th President of the United States. To help me go through this and other big stories, I have Libby Emmons. Libby, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Glad to be here.
I think this is our third or fourth show. I enjoy your insight and commentary. Today, we witnessed President Trump sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Was there anything in particular about the event or the day or his speech that stuck out to you?
There were a couple things, mostly good, but some a little disappointing. I was sad to see the celebration and the ceremonies moved inside because there were thousands of people that came to DC to witness that in person. And of course, the way that Trump became president was through the outright direct will of the American people. So I was sad to see that so many people were not able to attend the way they had planned. That was too bad. I know that Jack Posobiec put together a watch party so that a lot of people could at least get together somewhere and do that. And there was like 1,500 or 2,000 people there at that event, which was very cool to see. So I was glad that he did that for the MAGA faithful. So that was one thing. But then also, I thought that Trump's speech was really pretty incredible. I thought it was really detailed, all of his campaign promises, put everything into one place. And we already saw this afternoon, there was a lot of border stuff. He declared a national emergency at the southern border. Immediately, the crossing at El Paso is shut down. I'm sure that's a temporary measure, but for now, there's just, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're closing it down. Declaring the cartels terrorist organizations. I think that's important. We have women, young girls crossing all the time, getting raped. It's a horrible, horrible situation. In addition to the rest of the horribleness, you have that component. So yeah, those were my big takeaways. I did think it was a great speech. Whoever wrote that speech really deserves a good pat on the back there.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was really well done. My thought was as he moved forward with his vision for America, he was never outright rude to Kamala or to Joe or to Obama. It was more like little get out of the way. There's a new America coming. And so I appreciated the fact that he wasn't rude or ugly about it, but they were definitely pushed to the side. This entire event was about him, his vision for the future. And then, as you mentioned, immediately saying we're shutting down the border. It'll be really interesting to see what they actually can do about the cartel, because we're talking about a criminal organization that rakes in billions and billions of dollars. They're not just going to go away easily. They may repurpose that into something else, but it'll be really interesting to see if there's military action, naval action, some kind of a SEAL Team 6 Delta Force. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he just puts pressure on the government of Mexico through tariffs. What are your thoughts on how he might approach that?
I think he'll do whatever he has to do to put a stop to this. One thing that Trump learned during his first administration is that you can't just say that, something is the law, or say that, this is the order that you want carried out, and expect it to be carried out. That was true with the border wall, which didn't get completed, though I know that there was enormous progress made. And that was true on some other things as well, where Trump got held up in bureaucratic red tape. Trump got held up by Congress, certainly, which of course is Congress's job. I mean, they're responsible to their constituents to not just push through whatever it is the president says. We have a president, not a king. So I do appreciate when Congress is just like, now hold on there. We're going to do this stuff. We get to decide where the money's going. But so I think that's one thing that Trump knows, is that if he wants something done, he has to actually get out there and do it. The CBP One app got shut down today as well, so that there's no more appointment surrenders at the border just to get released into the United States. He cut down he removed the catch and release policy, which is where you get arrested at the border and then you're released into the United States to await your court date. I think there's going to be changes to a lot of those things. So yeah, I think that's another thing is that when Trump decides he's going to do something, you never know how far he's going to go, right? So in the first term, I remember, or was it the first term? I think it was in the interim during Biden's term. He said something like, "We should bomb the cartels," right? Didn't he say that at some point?
Something like
And yeah, and there's no reason for anyone to believe that Trump would not bomb the cartels. He is a little nuts, right? I mean, that's one of the things, his unpredictability and his willingness to go too far is one of the things that creates deterrence. It's one of the things that makes other nations or criminal enterprises say, you know what? Not today. We're not going to do this right now. We're going to hold off because it's possible that Trump is just going to be like, and now you're done. So that's one of the things also that I like about Trump. I've said this before, but it's like when there's a crazy homeless man on the corner with the knife, you cross the street. And I like the idea that Russia and North Korea and the drug cartels are going to be like, we're going to go over there. We're not going to tangle with this guy who is capable of anything. And I don't know Trump personally. I don't know if he really is capable of anything, but he certainly has managed to create the persona of someone who will do whatever has to be done to protect America's interests.
Yeah. Mel Gibson was just on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said whenever he feels uncomfortable, he starts behaving erratically in order to get people to pay attention. And he said, at one time he got stuck, I think in like Compton, California, and he was there in like this brand new Mercedes with like a bag of cash, and he had got some issue. Anyway, he got out and he was just acting really crazy. And so I think, Trump really displayed the fact that he's willing to do whatever when he took out General Soleimani. And that was the first time I think a lot of world leaders were like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we don't cross paths with this guy. You then later find out that he told the Taliban, if any more American soldiers die, I just want you to remember, we know exactly where you live. And then he sends over photos of the guy's house and family and just lets them know, like, we know everything about how you move, where you live. So it'll be really interesting to see what he does there. I think of all of the mandates that the American people gave him through their vote, closing the border and fixing illegal immigration was probably number one, wouldn't you say?
I would say, yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Stephen. And that's, of course, what propelled him into the White House in 2016. In 2016, it was build the wall. Everyone was like, yeah, we got to get a handle on this. This is a national security issue. Build that wall. And he got elected. And then immediately when Biden took office, it really has been a war over the border, right? Because Trump's last year in office, there were 480,000 illegal border crossers. It was a very low number. There was Title 42 was in place, the health measure preventing people from coming in. You had to remain in Mexico, meaning if you apply for asylum, you have to hang out in Mexico and wait for your court date, not in Detroit in government funded hotels with an EBT card of $3,000 a month and work permits. So these were things that really kept illegal immigration at bay to a much more manageable level. I think all Americans know there's going to be a measure of illegal immigration. Most of us are pretty in favor of legal immigration. People who want to come be Americans, we're all descended from people who wanted to come be Americans. Like, that's how we all got here. My Italian great grandparents, they wanted to be American when they got here. Then they moved to New York City and learned English by reading the New York Times. This is what they did. They opened businesses. They became part of their community. The bakery that my great grandfather built, the Rosalia Bakery, it's not called that anymore, but the brick oven still stands in Brooklyn. We want people who want to be American to come here. That's what we want. But I get the sense that a lot of the illegal immigrants who have been coming, they're not coming because they want to be American. They're coming because the door is open and there's a lot of free stuff. So why not just go get it? But that was basically a war, Trump versus Biden on the border. Biden comes in, he reversed all these executive orders. He fought Title 42, he ditched Remain in Mexico, he put a stop to the border wall, and then just in the past recent months, he was selling off pieces of the border wall to make it even harder for Trump to do what the American people have demanded that he do. So that is a huge difference. Every year, Biden let in over 2 million illegal immigrants just flooded into the country. And that was really something that no one liked to see. And it's been scary for a lot of people. It decreases our national sovereignty by eliminating the borders. And there's even been huge increases of illegal immigration across the Canadian border because it's just like we're a sieve, but people only come in, nobody goes out. You even had Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas speaking, I think it was in September, at some lefty journalism event in, I think it was Austin, and he was saying that deportation is bad policy because it's expensive to deport people, and where are you going to house them, and what's the due process, and all of this stuff. And I get all that, but that's not good enough. Yeah.
I'm reading that Trump could sign anywhere from 100 to 200 executive orders before midnight tonight. And do you have any insight on what the number is? I mean, that's like I've signed mortgage documents before, and I don't think I signed 200.
No, yeah, I mean, not even for two houses. I think it's actually FDR had the most executive orders with over 3,000. And President Biden, Obama, and Trump, and even George W. Bush, who had a ton of executive orders, had far, far less than that, under 1,000.
Wow.
Yeah, for the not even just under 1,000, but under 700, under 5, very low numbers compared to FDR and some of the other ones in the 20th century, also huge numbers. Yeah, there were a lot, and he laid them out in this crazy speech this morning, which was really epic. The end of DEI, that's one. Reinstating all of the people in the armed forces who were fired because they wouldn't take the COVID vaccine. Not just reinstating them, but with back pay. So that's a huge deal for those military families. I mean, these people have served our country. They deserve, to not lose their jobs because they don't want to take experimental medication. We learned that with Tuskegee as well. Don't experiment on our guys. That's not good. So there was that. What else did he have? There's only going to be two genders from now on. So that's something hopefully we can take to the bank. All of this border stuff. There's so much that he plans to do. And what I thought was interesting is this is all stuff that he laid out on the campaign trail. None of it was surprising. Getting rid of the EV mandates, getting rid of the Green New Deal, withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord, opening up more land to drilling, re-engaging fossil fuels, which of course we know with fossil fuels, you have the left who says that everyone should have the same thing, right? Equity, which is the same outcomes for everybody. And what they're always telling you is, launch all these wind farms, which again, new one, pause on all of the windmills off the coasts, which is going to be great for the whales who get this weird, it's not good for the whales, honestly. That's not good. But yeah, all of this stuff, he's just going to do a big reversal on the climate things. And I think that that's exciting. Oh, but I was going to say, fossil fuels, that's what raised the population globally out of poverty. That's what we have to thank for that. We had, the history of human beings, you can look at it very clearly from the position of energy consumption and where are we. And we now have the most efficient, least human toll taking kind of energy in fossil fuels. Solar isn't that. You have to have people mining this lithium and whatever else. The wind farming isn't that. Those things, those turbines, they're not recyclable. Once they break down, what are you going to do with all this stuff? There's nothing you can do with it. So there's all kinds of problems to those technologies. And I appreciated that. So yeah, he laid a lot of it out. And we knew what all of it was because he already told us.
Yeah.
And we voted for it. So
Off the top of your head, do you remember the guy who has been named for Secretary of Treasury? It's I've forgotten.
Scott Bessent.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So he was asked, isn't Trump making a big mistake because we're in a green energy race against China? And the guy said, with all due respect, they're going to open 100 coal plants this year.
Right.
This is not a clean energy race. This is an energy race. And basically, America can win this if we unleash it. So I'm actually very excited for affordable gas. I'll tell you something interesting. This morning, I kept trying to type in YouTube, make gas affordable again. I thought it would be cute and clever. YouTube blocked me 3 times from typing that on my own channel. On my own channel. I've never been blocked.
That's
I tried
crazy.
to write, make gas affordable again, and it said, you've been blocked for spamming. And I was like, what? So I was a little bit caught off guard by that. Hey, Libby, let me take a quick 60-second break. The average person is finding it difficult to pay expenses every month, and in most cases, there's nothing left over to cover the extras. Most aren't getting a big raise, expenses are up, and it's very hard to manage life without grabbing your credit card. If you're a homeowner and you're frustrated with that cycle, I need you to take 10 minutes. Do a no obligation phone call with my friends at American Financing. And if you're constantly carrying a credit card balance each and every month with an interest rate in the 20s or 30s, American Financing can show you how to put your hard-earned equity to work and get you out of debt fast. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving their customers on average $800 a month. And if you get started today, you may be able to skip your next mortgage payment. There are no upfront fees, so it costs you nothing to find out how much money you could save. I want you to call American Financing today at 888-686-8030. Again, that's 888-686-8030. Or go visit americanfinancing.net/Gardner. All right, now what were you saying?
I would be too. Yeah. Besant also in that same conversation was talking about how key it is to open nuclear facilities, nuclear energy facilities. And I think that he's dead on with that. Nuclear is a clean energy. Sure, there's problems with it in the past, but there's going to be problems with any energy source. The Greeks used human beings as their energy source. They used slave labor. We've come such a long way that if we can be considering there's going to be perhaps a meltdown here and there, that's going to happen. It's not an oil spill. We're getting better at it, even though we're not perfect at it. And I think that nuclear is a good way to go. If you look at it, we would never have been trying to save the whales if we hadn't been harvesting them to use their oil, which was even dirtier and less good and less efficient and less easily accessible than fossil fuels and then oil that we get now.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, the technology that built nuclear plants in the 50s, 60s, 70s, those are the ones that have had issues. They are so vastly different. It's like comparing the space shuttle that NASA used in the 60s compared to Elon Musk's Falcon rockets today. Like, there are such upgrades. We're catching 33-story rockets in midair coming in at 18,000 miles per hour. And you're telling me we can't build a smaller nuclear facility that doesn't have issues, that runs on a very small amount of uranium. So yeah, energy is going to be absolutely huge. Let me switch gears with you. What were your thoughts on waking up and realizing that Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and the entire January 6th committee were given a blanket pardon, but they've never been convicted of crimes? So
they've never even been tried.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
They've never even been accused. There's no grand jury convening. There's no indictment. There's absolutely nothing. I thought that was actually a pretty shocking move. And Biden also pardoned members of his family, including his brother, James Biden, who has been implicated in influence peddling and other things, just just by media who was digging into this, you know? So I thought that was, I kind of thought it was a little shameful to do that. And it's also something of an admission of guilt, as it was with Hunter Biden, you know, who was recently pardoned by his dad, despite Joe's promises not to pardon his son. I mean, you know, I'd pardon my son, but like he promised he wouldn't. So, like, what does that mean? But yeah, I mean, so clearly Fauci's guilty of something. Milley's guilty of something. What is it? Is it treason? I don't know. What is he guilty of? Liz Cheney, guilty. Benny Thompson, guilty. Adam Kinzinger, guilty. Adam Schiff, guilty. Zoe Lofgren, guilty. What are they guilty of? One thing that I do think is interesting is if Congress wants to go back and do an investigation of the January 6th committee, there is absolutely no reason that these people should not testify under oath honestly if subpoenaed to do so. They can't face any penalties. No harm can come to them. They are perfectly free, you know, they're never going to go to jail for any of this. And maybe it would encourage some actual transparency from these people as to what they were doing behind the scenes when they were going after Trump, going after, what is it, some 60, almost 1,600, I think it's like 1,583 people who were charged on January 6th things, a lot of trespassing. So yeah, I think on the one hand, it's shameful that Biden gave out these blanket pardons, preemptive pardons. No crimes have been charged or even really alleged. You know, there's been congressmen who have demanded answers, not gotten answers, but demanded them. So it's shameful. And I hope that now we actually subpoena them and hear what was really going on. I don't know that they'd be honest about it, but it might be worth a shot now that there's no reason that they could say that they should not be testifying.
Yeah, well, I had super lawyer Alan Dershowitz on my show, and he said he actually does believe that these people should be investigated. And he said, if they ignore the subpoena, new crime. If they lie under oath, new crime, right? So he said it would actually behoove them to be particularly honest about their situation. I'm personally bitter and bothered by the Dr. Fauci pardon. This is a man responsible for the death of tens of thousands of men from HIV and AIDS with the medication he gave them that killed more people than the disease. This is a man responsible for funding gain-of-function research with our money, flooding the world with COVID, covering up the crime, locking down the world, millions and millions and millions of people dead. And yet Biden says, there's been no crime and I'm going to give him a blanket pardon. I just think it's such a slap in the face. And I think instead of giving him a Mattel hero Barbie doll, I think that this man needs to be dragged out into the light and shamed, and people see the truth. And then you can say, now that we all know the truth about you, you don't have to go to jail because you've been pardoned by a cognitively deficient president of the United States. But now everyone knows the truth about what you did.
Yeah, I would love to know exactly what was going on there. We've had bits and pieces. When Dr. Deborah Birx put out her book, we heard that Dr. Fauci had no idea why 6 feet of social distancing was the thing to do. That's what they did during the Spanish flu. 6 feet is how deep you bury someone so that, you know, parasites and bacteria don't rise up. Where'd you get this from, Fauci? What's the deal? What's this all about? He didn't know then. He talked about in that book, Birx mentions that there wasn't really a very good rationale for masking either. So yeah, all of these things, this lockdowns, everything. He's the one who was telling us not to spend time with our families. He's the one who was telling us, you know, not to visit people in hospitals. People died without the benefit of having their loved ones around them. I mean, what cruelty, not only to the dying, but to the family. And I think that you're right. I think it would really behoove us to know. And he's also getting, I think, $400,000 a year in his pension. That's a huge pension. That's not something most of us can aspire to. That's not something most people make when they're working as hard as they can. Never mind when they're in retirement. So it'd be good to know what kind of public servant gets rich off the public trust like that, and then isn't held accountable.
Well, my understanding is this not guilty guy who committed no crime, that doesn't need to be pardoned, was pardoned, but on top of that generous salary from the American taxpayer, he gets $15 million a year in Secret Service protection.
Well, they gave up the Secret Service protection.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't give it up. The deal that they had for that expired. So now he's got to hire his own private security, which he can do at taxpayer expense with his $400,000 a year.
Yeah. Wow. My understanding is Biden used his pardoning power just minutes before in the rotunda as he was waiting for President Trump to show up. That's where he signed the pardoning order. Have you heard that? Is that?
No, but I didn't hear that, but he was waiting around for Trump. They all had some tea together, and we didn't get to hear anything that they said. That was an unmiked occasion. And then, of course, Biden rode with Trump in the limo over to the Capitol. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when everyone was standing up for Trump, Biden sat down. He just remained seating. He didn't give any respect to the office that he has been holding for the last 4 years.
Yeah. That must have been difficult to sit through, right? Imagine being Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, and every speech is about how terrible you are and how the country's terrible. And I mean, I don't think Trump and others were wrong. I'm just saying, from a humility standpoint, it would be very hard to sit through a public bashing like that. This is why I don't get into government. I don't know if my skin is thick enough to deal with that.
Definitely mine is not. I would never get into politics.
Yeah.
That seems totally insane.
Do you know anything about these rumors circulating on the internet about Barack and Michelle Obama divorcing? She's not showing up to events. She didn't come today. I don't want to perpetuate anything. I just curious if you guys over at Post Millennial have seen or read anything about that.
I've been reading the articles about it just to see what's going on. We haven't covered anything about it at Post Millennial. It seems sort of a little gossipy, it's a little TMZ. And I've been trying to think about it too. She's not really under any obligation at this point, right? She doesn't have to do anything. She's not in power. She doesn't appear to be seeking office, or else we might have seen her give Kamala Harris a run for her money. But yeah, Michelle Obama wasn't at Jimmy Carter's funeral either. I don't know what's going on with them, but I don't really care about their marriage.
Yeah. I mean, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when I see rumors like that. I just wonder if, I know she's been dealing with health issues. I know she is timid when it comes to government stuff, and also her mother died within the last 12 months. I just wonder if that has more to do with it than the fact that they're marriage. But I was just curious if you guys
it might be, it could be one of those things where she's just like, I'm not doing all of this. There's just too much psychically going on. But I have to say, I think if I were First Lady, I would show up to the former president's funeral. I think that is a sign of respect. If that was something I was invited to, I would have definitely gone, just because there's a lot of respect I give to the office. Even when Trump was elected in 2016, I didn't vote for Trump. And I thought, okay, well, Trump is the president. I have a lot of respect for the office. I have a lot of respect for my fellow voters and for my fellow Americans. They put this man in office. Let's see what happens. I support the president because I support the nation. And I think that's important to do. So more than her not showing up at the inauguration, everyone wanted a ticket. She probably did somebody a favor who got in because she wasn't there. But I did think that it was sort of low not to go to President Carter's funeral.
Yeah. Well, maybe she didn't go because on the front of his funeral paperwork was the same racist symbol on Pete Hegseth's chest. So maybe she just couldn't stand all the racist, So anyway,
Crusaders.
what a silly thing to bring up in a congressional hearing. Tell me about your racist tattoo. Steve Bannon, he has been a warrior for President Trump. He says tech billionaires attending Trump's inauguration is a signal that they surrender, that they know that their businesses are subject to being put out of business, that they went too far in blocking conservative content, going against him. I saw Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and many, many others are there kissing Donald Trump's butt. Is Steve Bannon right? Is this a surrender, or is this liberation that they can now go run their business without the pressure of the Biden administration?
I think it's a little of both. I do think that there is a certain amount of surrender because they know that, it's not business as usual under Donald Trump. Trump already has, Elon Musk already has the ear of Donald Trump. And together they've been talking about ending censorship on the internet, which I think is a hugely big deal, and which was also mentioned in his speech this morning. And in recent months, ever since Trump was the survivor of an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania on July 13th, Zuckerberg has been changing his tune. We know that he called Trump after that assassination attempt. We know that he was very impressed that, the then former president, stood up, said, fight, fight, fight. We know that for sure. We know that Jeff Bezos squashed a editorial that was planning to be run by the editorial board at the Washington Post in support of Kamala Harris. And he said, no, we're not going to endorse her. I haven't seen much from Tim Cook, although there has, of course, been antitrust talk both for Apple and Google, and I think both of them were at the event. One thing that I've been thinking about too, though, is it's not just them saying like, okay, we're here to play ball. And there's, of course, questions about Zuckerberg's authenticity with regard to his newfound anti-censorship approach, his newfound anti-DEI, removing tampons from men's bathrooms, etc., all of this. So there have been some questions, and I know that Bannon has questioned that as well. But I think there's something else. I think we are seeing the new, for lack of a better term, the new robber barons, right? These are the Carnegies. These are the Rockefellers. These are the Henry Fords of our day. And they want kind treatment from the government. They want, of course, to be able to influence the president without paying a bunch of K Street lobbyists to do it for them. This is what they want to do. They want to be there. They want to be on speed dial with the president, just like, former presidents have been with the head of the auto workers and all of that, which Trump has also talked about reinvigorating the American auto economy so that there's more new cars being manufactured here, which I don't know about you, but when I buy a car, I'd rather buy American, either that or you buy a used one. But like if I'm buying a new car, I'm going to buy an American car. I think that's important. And that's certainly an ethos that we don't necessarily have anymore. So I think that while Steve Bannon is right that it's a surrender, he has also said to watch out for these guys and to be aware of what it is that they are pushing. These are the guys that are pushing AI, which eventually will drive out our ability to think or write for ourselves. That's a lot of what it does. I don't know if you have in Gmail, when you start typing, a lot of times it tries to finish it for you. And no matter how many times I've turned this thing off, please don't interrupt me, Google, and speak over me and write down what you think I'm trying to say. It pops up and it tries to finish my sentences. I absolutely hate that. I think we should all hate that. We don't need some machine being peddled by these rich tech bros to finish our sentences for us. We can think for ourselves. And the more we have them infiltrating the products that we use in our daily lives, the less ability we will have to discern the thoughts they want us to be thinking from the thoughts that we are thinking ourselves, or the thoughts that pop into our own brains unbidden, like the Proustian Madeleine. You have a sensation, it recalls something. Gmail is never going to be able to predict that when Proust is eating a Madeleine, it's reminding him of his grandmother's kitchen and, drinking tea or what have you. So I think that it's important to have there be a distance between these guys. And that's something that Bannon has mentioned as well. I do find it does make me a little nervous, the proximity of these incredibly wealthy men, these incredibly wealthy captains of an industry that they are all pushing forward. We recently saw that with the debate over H-1B visas on X, which played out, in real time, where you had the tech people saying, like, we need more people from around the world to come into this country and essentially replace Americans because we're not getting ahead enough on tech. Have we asked ourselves what getting ahead on tech means? Have we asked ourselves what that looks like? Have we asked ourselves what that means for national sovereignty and for individual sovereignty, the sovereignty of our own persons? We have refrigerators that can talk to the grocery store and deliver groceries on our behalf. This kind of thing doesn't just terrify me in a Ray Bradbury sense if I'm the only one left on the block without a TV, spooging out blue light through the windows. It disgusts me on a gut level that this is the kind of thing we think is progress. Our refrigerators talking to Target so that they can deliver, I don't know, more protein bars. So yeah, I agree with Bannon, who has a very nuanced view on this as well. I actually heard him speak last night, and I think it's important that we all remember our individual sovereignty, especially when you're looking at a president to whom we have given a huge mandate and a lot of control. We need to hold our representatives accountable to hold the president accountable. This is how this has to go, or else we lose everything.
Yeah. This next time around, I think it's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be different. Like just before you and I went on, I was watching the luncheon and Trump's walking around. I can't believe how many Democrats are smiling and shaking his hand. It's almost a little creepy. Like, you guys tried to ruin his life. I mean, I'm sure, I know Trump is very intelligent. According to Van Jones, he's smarter than the entire mainstream media. But I hope that he understands a lot of these people are super fake. They would throw him in jail, ruin his life right now, and they're terrified of his power and his spontaneity for what he might do. But other than that, I'm very optimistic about covering him for the next 4 years. Any parting words or last minute thoughts or stories that you feel are relevant?
I am really looking forward to seeing what happens next. For the past couple months since the election, it's felt like we are waiting to get started. It's almost seemed like all of the news between then and now has been sort of filler. Like what's going on? Now we're talking about grooming gangs, rape gangs from the UK from 15 years ago. How did that suddenly pop up? And I do hope that in the UK they investigate that and they get rid of whoever authorized that cover up because it's ludicrous. But yeah, I'm hopeful to see what comes next. I think some of the things we're going to see next, we're going to see these deportations starting. There was talk that they're going to start in Chicago, where of course there's been a big problem. And there's also been a lot of the Black residents of Chicago have spoken out and said, hey, why are you doing this to our communities? Why are you, pushing us out of housing and jobs and all of this? And so I do think that, especially when it comes to illegal immigration, you have a situation where for Americans, race becomes obsolete and we're all just Americans saying like, hey, wait a second, it's our country. So I'm excited to see what happens there. I think it's going to be, I think we're going to get a lot of dodgy images, things that are going to be pulling at our heartstrings. I think it's going to be really painful to watch this whole deportations thing. So I think they're going to start, like Tom Homan says, the incoming ICE guy. They're going to start with people who have already been charged with crimes. I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. One thing I'm also interested in is the shift in culture. We have seen such a, to borrow a Kamala word, vibe shift in the past month or two since the election, and even leading up to that, because of course culture comes before politics. I'm interested to see if we're going to have a change in Hollywood. We have Mel Gibson, who you mentioned earlier, his new film. He's working on The Resurrection of the Christ. Daily Wire is still going strong. Maybe we'll see, more coming out from them. But are we going to see the staunch legacy outlets starting to make serious changes to try and keep up with an American public that has already far surpassed what it is that they've been fed for the past several years.
Yeah. Well, everybody talks about the president's first 100 days, but I just can't believe how much Trump has gotten done in the previous 100 days. I've never, I mean, I watched Trump come in last time. I watched Biden come in. Nobody got so much done between November 5th and January 20th like Trump did. I mean, the Trump effect is real. And I'm just reading here before we exit. ICE deportation operation announces they're going to do raids on Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Denver to start. So those are the big
starting
five.
in New York. They're not starting in New York. Interesting.
No, maybe because these ones protested where Eric Adams is saying, I'll work hand in hand with you. You've got people like Brandon Johnson of Chicago saying, I'll spend $100 million to block you. You've got California saying we've got a $50 million, Trump-proof California. So maybe that's why they're starting there. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it all goes. It's going to be a great 4 years and a really fast-moving first 100 days. Libby, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow you, where can I send them online?
Well, you can follow me at Libby Emmons on Twitter. You can email me anything you want, tips or tricks, at liberty@thepm.news. And you could sign up for my newsletter at thepm. No, what is it? Well, if you email me, I can sign you up for the newsletter. I can't remember where to find it, but that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, great. I will put those direct links down below. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Stephen.